If you're planning on buying, selling, or trading in a vehicle anytime in the next year or two, you need to understand what's going on. Because under the surface, the auto market is showing all the signs of an impending reset. Prices are strained, financing is getting brutal, and inventory is stacking up like we haven't seen in over a decade. In this video, I'm going to break down the 5 major warning signs that the car market correction or even a crash is coming. And I'm going to show you what it means for your wallet. So first, let's start by zooming out. Pre-2020, the car market worked just like any other normal marketplace. You had supply, you had demand, and negotiating power. Buyers could often haggle the price down. Paying full MSRP was something that you'd only do if you were desperate or terrible at negotiating. But the pandemic threw a wrench into everything. Production lines were backed up. Chip shortages hit hard, and automakers had to forecast lower demand. And in doing so, they basically starved the market of supply. Meanwhile, the government handed out trillions of dollars in stimulus. And suddenly, everyone had money and fewer things to spend it on. So people turned to cars. Demand went up, supply stayed low, and prices, they went through the roof. Auto lenders also eased their standards a lot. We saw banks approving loans for borrowers with absolutely questionable credit, just to keep the economy moving. It worked in the short term, but now we're starting to see the long-term effects, and they're ugly. So let's get into warning sign number 1, the aftershock of inflated prices. Between 2021 and 2023, car buyers were getting hit with brutal markups. We're talking $5,000, $10,000, or even $30,000 over sticker. And in some crazy edge cases, nearly double the MSRP. But those people didn't just overpay, they financed those overpayments. Fast forward a few years, and now those inflated vehicles are being traded in. And people are realizing that they're $10,000 or more underwater. A recent report said that 1 in 4 trade-ins now carries negative equity. And the average upside down amount is nearly $7,000. It means they owe $7,000 more than the car's worth. Now take the case of someone who bought a Toyota RAV4 Prime in 2022. At that time, people were so desperate to get one that they paid over $60,000 for a model with a sticker price closer to $44,000. That car now sells for around $40,000. And if they finance that original $60K, they could easily still owe $50K or more. And that leads us straight into warning number 2, the financing disaster. The monthly payments people are making right now are just plain unsustainable. The average new car payment is $742. And that's the average. About 1 in 6 buyers are paying over $1,000 a month just for the loan. Now let's layer in interest rates. In 2020, you could get a 60-month loan for 2 or 3%. Now you're looking at 6, 7, 8, 9, or 11% for a used vehicle. And that adds up fast, especially when you're already paying more for insurance. And here's another example. Let's say someone bought a 2021 Mazda CX-5 for $30,000 with a $4,000 down payment. Back then, at 2.5% interest rate, their monthly payment would be around $460. Add in $120 a month for insurance, you're at $580 a month. Over 5 years, that's about $35,000. Now, let's look at 2025. Same model, same price. $30,000 with $4,000 down, but 6.5% interest. That jumps your monthly payment up to $570. Insurance is up about 40%. Let's put that at about $170. Now you're paying $740 a month, or over $44,000 over the term. That's a $9,500 increase in total cost. And again, the car's MSRP didn't change. That entire difference came from interest and insurance. It's like being penalized $10K just for being a 2025 buyer instead of 2021 buyer. But it gets worse. Warning sign number 3. A growing number of people can't even get approved for loans at all. The total amount of auto loan debt has hit a staggering $1.7 trillion. And according to recent surveys, nearly half of loan applicants have been denied at least once in the past 12 months. So not only are cars more expensive, but the number of people who can't buy one is climbing. And that's putting major pressure on dealerships. Which brings us to warning sign number 4, a massive inventory backlog. As of early 2025, there are over 3 million unsold vehicles just sitting on lots across the country. And that's a 120% increase since last year. Some brands are sitting on 100+ days of inventory, which is a massive red flag. Back in 2022, the average was under 20 days. And something else you have to keep in mind, all these dealers, they have floor plans on all these cars. That means they have debt on all these cars. They're paying interest on all these cars. They got loans for all these cars. They don't own all those cars you see on a car dealership lot. They're financing them. So the longer they sit there, the more the dealer is paying money for vehicles that they can't sell. And eventually, they start losing money on all these cars, even if they sold them for MSRP. So manufacturers are throwing in everything that they can at the problem. Incentives are rising fast. On average, automakers are now giving back around 7.7% of the transaction price in rebates or financing discounts. But even with that, sales aren't picking up. The truth is that consumers, they're just tapped out. Between interest rates, insurance premiums, and inflated MSRPs, people just don't have the budget anymore. Especially not with 6, 7, 8-year loans that stretch payments into oblivion. And when you combine the excess inventory with the lagging demand, something has to give. Which brings us to warning sign number 5, panic in the auto industry itself. In just the past 12 months or so, we've seen thousands of layoffs from major manufacturers. Ford caught hundreds of workers. Stellantis slashed entire shifts at multiple plants. Nissan, one of Japan's largest automakers, saw its profits crater by 90%. They even tried to merge with Honda, a deal that would have created a $60 billion auto group, but that fell apart. And that's a huge red flag. Big automakers are very reluctant to merge, unless they're desperate. When you start seeing those historic brands trying to consolidate just to survive, that tells you that the stress isn't just temporary, it's structural. And the final blow? Tariffs, big surprise. The new 25% tariff on imported vehicles and auto parts announced by President Trump took effect earlier this year, and that could hit up to 45% of all light vehicles sold in the US. Axios reported that nearly 7.3 million cars in the US in 2024 were imported from either Mexico, Canada, Japan, Korea, or the EU. Tariffs on that scale would either be eaten by manufacturers or more likely passed on to you, the consumer. The US International Trade Commission says that 25% tariff would raise average vehicle price around 5%, but realistically, the psychological impact could be far worse. Buyers will probably just assume that the prices are jumping 25% since that's what the tariffs are, and manufacturers are going to have to hike rates to preserve margin. So here's where we are. Millions of people are underwater on auto loans. Financing costs are up nearly 50% over just the past few years. Massive inventories and no one is buying. Automakers are panicking. And now tariffs threaten to spike prices again. That's a recipe for a full-blown market correction or crash. And unless interest rates come down significantly or demand magically picks back up, something's got to give. So what should you do? If you're already in a bad loan, don't double down. Trading in with negative equity is just robbing your future self to feel better now. Write it out if you can. Make extra payments if you can do that. And, hold until you've built back some equity. Now, if you're in the market to buy, consider waiting a while. A flood of dealer incentives is already starting, and if inventory continues to rise, prices will have to fall. Tariffs could complicate that, but there may still be windows where you can find good deals, especially on domestic models or EVs that aren't subject to import duties. The bottom line is this: the car market is under real stress, but stress can create opportunities if you're patient and informed. Let me know in the comments below, what are you seeing in your local area? Are prices dropping? Are dealers getting desperate yet? And if you want to know exactly how much car that you can afford without completely wrecking your finances, check out my deep dive on that topic. It's linked right here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.